like to welcome everyone to the Edmond City Council special meeting for Monday, August 3rd. Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you being here tonight. This is a special meeting to discuss issues concerning the pandemic in our community. And we have one item of business to discuss tonight. We will also do some introductions of city officials that will help explain what's going on in our community in terms of what the city is doing to help us contend with this pandemic. And also we will have a report on the latest information regarding the number of new cases in our community, and we will discuss that at some length, hopefully. But first, before I introduce Mr. Murdoch, I'd like for the city council members to introduce themselves and say, I will start. My name is Dan O'Neill. I'm the mayor here. And David, would you tell the folks where you're broadcasting from and where you're at? Okay.
Yes, sir. David Chapman, Ward 1 City Councilman. I am in downtown Edmond in the Chapman House.
Thank you very much. Nick, you're up next, I guess.
Nick Massey, Mayor Pro Tem and Ward 4 City Councilman. I am at my home in Hunters Creek in Northwest Edmond.
Daryl?
Daryl Davids, Ward 3 City Council, in my house in Ward 3.
Josh?
Josh Moore, Ward 2. I'm at my house in East Edmond.
Hi. We also have our city manager, Larry Stevens. Welcome. Glad to have you here today, Larry.
Hey, thank you, Mayor. And I am in my office at City First.
Mr. Murdoch, where are you located at?
Mayor Council, Steve Murdoch, City Attorney, along with Cinda Coble, City Clerk. We're here in the conference room in the City First building.
Thank you. Mr. Murdoch, will you explain some of the legal implications associated with the video conference that we're using the Zoom method?
Yes, sir. The Edmond City Council will close the council chambers and hold a special meeting this evening by video conference. The change is to protect the public health while maintaining critical operations, and it is in accordance with the recent changes to the State Open Meeting Act as set out in Senate Bill 661. The changes define how to hold open meetings remotely during the COVID-19 pandemic and national emergency. Members of the City Council and members of the city staff are participating remotely via video conference. The posted agenda provides notice to the public on how to watch the meeting and connect to the meeting. Also, should a connection with any one of the council members present for the meeting be lost, the meeting will be recessed to reestablish the connection. We'll recess the meeting up to a maximum of 30 minutes to reestablish the connection. If the connection is not possible to be, we reconvene to Tuesday, August 4th, or at a later date and time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. This particular item that we have on the agenda discusses only one issue, and that is the issue of the expiration date. We will not be discussing any other things related to this ordinance change other than the effective date for the expiration. And currently it is at September 6th, and the proposal is to change it to November 30th. And so we will have opportunity for public comment, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that we're going to try to restrict the conversation to just that one issue and that one issue alone. Mr. Moore, will you explain how our public comments work and under the Zoom meeting procedures?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. For anyone that is participating tonight in the Zoom app, when we get to the portion of the meeting where the mayor asked for public comment specific to the expiration date, you can do so by using the raise hand feature in the participants tab. If you have called in tonight, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. At that point, we will allow people to give their comment one at a time. In the meantime, we ask that everyone else please leave your video feed off so that we can see all of the key people that will be speaking tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. I guess the first place we always start, we ask our city manager to give us an update on how things are going within the city and some of the changes related to the pandemic that have happened recently. Larry, glad to have you back, sir.
Hey, Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I don't have a lot to report on tonight, just a couple of things. The first one of those is that we remain at 4 city employees that have tested positive for the COVID-19 virus. That's again out of a workforce of about 800 full-time employees. I would like to go over what we are looking at in terms of our general enforcement guidelines for the mandatory masks when that ordinance becomes effective on August 26th. At this point, we plan to use something similar to what we used in the initial stages of the pandemic to address the essential versus non-essential businesses. We believe our approach in that was very successful. Our code people have also talked with their counterparts in Oklahoma City and Norman, as well as the Oklahoma County Health Department. Excuse me. We will respond on a complaint basis only. Our response will initially come through code enforcement, which will respond only during regular working hours, and the calls will be logged. However, the police department will respond if we are contacted by a business owner or manager who asks for help with a certain situation that has escalated from a mask violation to having someone removed who refuses to leave, et cetera. And of course, all of our PD calls are always recorded. The police department will respond to these situations as they always do for such offenses that would involve trespass, disturbing the peace, et cetera. Our goal is always and remains voluntary compliance. We will initially direct complaints to a code administration number, and that phone number is 359-4793. And these complaints will be placed on our list of service requests, but in the normal priority order, as such complaints will not go to the top of the list. Code people can also receive concerns through our website, www.edmondok.com, and the reporting party would click on the Report a Concern tab. We will refer business owners and managers to the police department, and that number would be 359-4338. If the situation escalates, as I just talked about, and we will track the number of both types of incidents that generates a response from the city of Edmond. Also, to our knowledge at this point, there have been no citations yet issued either in Oklahoma City or Norman. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my update.
Appreciate that. Any questions, council, for the city manager?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt Stillwell is our Director for Emergency Management. He will provide us some reports and some information. Matt, what's the latest?
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. And as always, I pray that you guys are all staying safe and your families also. Numbers. The numbers are there, and we're going to go in a little more detail here tonight. I've got some graphs to show you and that kind of stuff. If you recall last week, the numbers have been erratic all along. And so looking, at the numbers on a day-to-day basis really doesn't do us a whole lot of good because of just the anomalies that are inherent to the reporting process. The Oklahoma City County Health Department has advised us that the best way to really understand what's going on and what these trends are is to look at these numbers over a period of time. So over 7-day periods, 14-day periods, and even a month. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Now, I would remind you, as we talk about the Edmond specific number, that number is not published on any of the health department websites. We receive information specific to addresses for the safety of our first responders. And so we're able to, and it only reports new case information. So we're able to take those addresses, verify that they're within the Edmond city limits, and that's how we arrive at the Edmond number that we've been reporting. So we're up to 691 cases. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Casey's really taken a risk and and allowing me to do this. So I think, let's see. Is it showing up, Casey?
Yes, you're good, Matt. Go ahead.
Okay, and do you see a chart that says daily new state cases?
You're good to go.
Excellent. So here, what we've done is we've looked at the past 14 days, and I've done a comparison of daily new cases on these charts at both at the state level, at the county level, and at the local level. So I'm just going to hover here just to give an indication of whether or not these trends are consistent among the three groups. So we'll start here with the state. And if we hover quickly over to the county, it's similar as far as the trends go. And then we get over to the city. So we have county and city, a lot of similarities there. So the trends that we're seeing are consistent. That gives us a little more confidence in the data that we're seeing. But this is new case data. So as we look at new case data, one point that was made during our call with the health department on Friday was that a lot of these numbers that we've seen in the past week really reflect what happened at the 4th of July and maybe a week after that. So this information is a little bit older, but it's the best we have to see what these trends are for new cases. Now, if we look at another chart here, we can look at a 2-week period going back, and we can look back at a 4-week period for new cases being reported again at the local, county, and state level. And by doing a little bit of math, we can see the average of new cases per day. So on this particular chart here, we're looking at pretty much from 2 weeks back and then 4 weeks back for the city of Edmond, just shy of 16 new cases a day on average. So that's remaining consistent. Oklahoma County, pretty much the same thing. 210 cases for the past 2 weeks and then 208 for the past 4. And then we get to the state and we see that number jump a little bit. So last 2 weeks are at 940, then a week before that, almost 150 cases shy of that if you average out the past 4 weeks. Now understand that there were some reporting anomalies that occurred during this period at the state level. And so that could affect these numbers. Now I want to go back real quick to this slide here. So you look at the past 2 days. So this is a 14-day average. Look at the past 2 days and we're low. And so I would just caution to understand that these numbers are erratic. 2 days and 14 days will affect averages a little bit more than it will for 2 days out of 28. But that's 2 days of 9 new cases. What's going to happen for the rest of the week? So we're going to go ahead and keep a close eye on that to see, are the numbers really going down, or is this a little blip in the reporting process and we see numbers coming back up? So it's going to be very important for us to look at that closely. So again, this information is kind of, it's old data that's catching up. And so the health department advises us that the most real-time information that they have is really when it comes to hospitalizations. And they pay very, very close attention to this number for a couple of reasons. One, obviously they get a better picture as to what's happening in more real time as to the severity of the cases. So if somebody's being hospitalized, that's considered a little bit more severe. But it also gives the health department an indication as to where they're at when it comes to hospital beds and the concerns that they have there. Now, a conference call on Friday, and we're seeing a slight little uptick if you look at this number here. This slide here is actually provided by the health department, Oklahoma City County Health Department. And both the metropolitan slide and the Oklahoma County slide are very similar in this very slight increase. And their concern really is the fact that the number is not going down. The ideal situation would be for the number to decrease. And so how does that relate to the number of beds that they have? And then how does that relate to the number of medical staff that they have to be able to take care of these hospitalizations? So As we see, the numbers are mainly consistent here for the last couple of weeks. The numbers are still high, which is causing concern at the state, or rather at the county health department, as to being able to have the resources to handle it if it remains in this trend. And certainly, if we see an increase in this trend, there's going to be more concern in the medical community. So that's kind of what I have. I know I threw a lot of information at you in a short period of time, but Mayor, Council, if you want to discuss anything here, if you have any questions, I'm here for you.
Matt, in looking at this current chart, and I look all the way to the right, I don't know what date that is, but there, if I'm understanding you correctly, there are 220 people in Oklahoma County that are actually in the hospital.
Right, and this is the metropolitan. So the number is slightly lower for Oklahoma County. This would include Cleveland County and Canadian County. The numbers in those two counties are much lower, but it is similar in that the answer to that is yes, that's the current hospitalizations.
So how does that get adjusted if 4 people leave the hospital and 4 more go in? Do we stay at 220, or I mean, what's the lag?
Yes. So this is the number of people that are actually occupying a bed. So people do get released, and then new people come in. So basically, the health department is saying, we're steady here with the influx and the outflux, with just a real slight incline. So.
Okay. So taking that back to the Edmond number, we have 691 cases. Do we have any idea of how many of those are in the hospital?
No. So again, the only information we get from the state is the new case count. They don't extrapolate it any further. It's based on a governor's order, so they're basically limited to what they can give us. Now we can dig deeper and maybe look at the zip code information or really the county information to kind of get an idea of what the trend is. But as far as what's specifically happening here within Edmond proper, that's really impossible to do at this point.
So the 691 is just that many people who have tested positive, but we don't know the severity.
Yeah, that's 691 and that's from the beginning of the event. So all the way back to when we started receiving reports.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought another statistic, a report that I heard from the county health department at the same meeting, was that the average number of days for patients in the hospital has improved. At one point in time, they were listed as 11 days in the hospital, and now it's getting down to somewhere in the 5 to 6 day.
Yeah, I saw the stat today was 5 for the county. And then there was an additional hotspot too. I meant to report that, and that's assembly line workers and manufacturing facilities. So we had 4 last week, which were houses of worship and the restaurants, the daycare centers, the social gatherings, and now we have the office environment, and now the manufacturing, particularly assembly lines, was added to the hot number, which is now 5 for this week.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Any other questions, council?
No.
Matt, was last week a record week for Edmond with 140 cases?
Yeah, your number's a little high there, Josh. There was an error in reporting on Saturday, but we've corrected that. But yeah, we're seeing the numbers, the raw numbers continue to rise, and we've seen that upward trend for really the past month.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? All right. Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate that very much.
You're welcome.
The next item of business is a discussion and consideration of the amendment to the Declaration of Emergency regarding COVID-19 issued 27 July. Mr. Burdosh, would you please introduce that for the council?
Mayor, Council, at your last meeting, you did make some changes with regard to the date or extension date with regard to the proclamation. That revised declaration of emergency went in, continues until August 26th, 2020. There really were no other changes other than the date. It continues to require that all on-premise staff in restaurants, breweries, wineries, taverns, shopping mall, food courts, food halls, and other food service are strongly encouraged to wear facial masks or coverage while on duty. Avoid seating groups where there can be social distancing. So also asking businesses and open to the public to require to post conspicuous signs within 7 days at 3 inches to inform customers and business of the policies, as well as our normal standard language with regard to social distancing and following all the CDC standards. So the revised declaration of emergency continues in effect until August 26th. At this time, staff does not have any recommendations, does not recommend any changes be made. So.
We have, next item is item 3, and it's any other questions for Mr. Murdoch, Council, before we go on to the next item? Okay. Next item is item 3, which is a public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 3792, amending Title 5 of Edmond Municipal Code Sanitation, Chapter 515, COVID pandemic by amending Section 515.06, effective and expiration dates and times, and providing for repealer and severability. This is where we propose to change our ordinance and change it from an expiration date of 6 September on our ordinance to and extend it to November 30th. Is that a correct assumption, Mr. Murdoch?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, Mayor and Council, at your last meeting, you approved ordinance number 3791 related to the requirements to wear facial coverings while inside any indoor place open to the public, subject to certain exceptions. That ordinance was approved without the separate emergency clause, so it goes into effect 30 days after passage or August 26th. The ordinance approved provided that it would expire on September 8th. You have a proposed ordinance on your agenda tonight that would extend the September 8th expiration date to November 30th, 2020. If the proposed ordinance is approved tonight, it will go into effect prior to September 8th and will extend the expiration date of ordinance number 3791. No other changes are proposed.
Thank you very much. Council, is there any discussion on this item?
Want me to start?
Okay.
So when I voted for this, I mentioned that I thought that it was a limited measured response bounded by scope and time. And the time that I thought I was voting on was September 8th. And now we're putting it out, in my opinion, quite a way. So I don't think it'll be a surprise to anybody here listening or any of the council that I think that that's too far out. So I don't like November 30th.
Or you have something you feel more comfortable with, a date?
I would listen to you guys and see what you think.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment on this?
Oh, I can chime in right now. As we look at what we're trying to do today is clean up our dates that we can get something that's measurable. And 30 November is a couple of 100 days away from now. But I'm amenable to moving that date back to something like October 12th, that will give us about 6.5 weeks of data after the ordinance takes effect to let us see what happens in trending. Also around that time in October, about mid-October, our educational systems, our schools around here will be going on fall break, which will give us another marker to look at what happens after fall break, just like we were looking at 4th of July as a marker, what happens after, as we look at our data. So I'm amenable to to move the date back to about October 12th timeframe. I think that is a city council date. So it's not, it wouldn't be a special meeting date, that we would look at it again.
Josh, are you familiar with that date? You favor that date?
Sure, yeah, October 12th.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with both Councilman Davis and Chapman.
Okay. Any further discussion, council? Would that work for you? David?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
It appears to be pretty far out even then because we're starting it so late from now.
Correct.
I mean, that's part of the issue, right? I mean, because we're still 3 weeks from starting this thing, right?
Correct.
Yep. Any other thoughts or comments, Nick?
I don't have any at this point. Thank you.
Okay. So the amendment now is to extend the expiration date to October 12th from September 6th. Okay.
I think it's also important to say that we'll continue at our monthly meetings to evaluate that as well. And if something changes significantly, then we have the ability at that point to change it. So
Appreciate that. It is a good comment. Very well. I think this would be the appropriate time to ask for public comment. Is there any public comment on the change to the expiration date now, October 12th?
Now, as the mayor said earlier, public comment needs to be specific to the expiration date and nothing beyond that. So just as a reminder for everyone, if you do want to make comments specific to the expiration date, you can do so by using the raise hand feature. That is in the participants tab. You can do that now. If you've called in, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. We will allow up to 5 minutes of on-topic discussion. So we will go ahead and bring up our first one here. Again, if you would please state your first and last name once we get you unmuted.
It's Janice. How are you doing?
Go ahead.
Hi there. I'm doing good. I'm Cheryl Janice. My home address is 2701 Old Farm Lane. I also have a business in Edmond. And my question, and please don't cut me off this week. Last week, I felt like I got cut off when I was asking a question. Still applies to the date because I really, really feel like it's super important that the citizens know what you guys are using for your numbers. I know last week Josh said we're using numbers. We're all looking at numbers, but what are the exact numbers you're looking for to pick that date? So I don't know when it gets to October 12th or before, what numbers are going to be the main number that you look at to say, okay, this is it, and we're gonna take this mandate away, or these numbers have risen. Is it death numbers? Is it case numbers? Is it hospitalization numbers? That's people that I've been talking to said the same thing. They're like, what numbers are we looking at? So we can all, one, keep city council accountable for what they're asking the citizens to do, so we know what you're going to go by. So is there something you guys can give me on that?
Well, I can give you my opinion. Okay. My opinion is that we will go by the numbers that we have. We're mostly right now looking at new case numbers. That's driving the train. Okay. But should the hospitalization change, or should we a greater number of people become hospitalized, that could prompt us to take action. Or not, and the same with the number of people that die, if that number changed dramatically. So all I can say is right now we've been very, very fortunate in terms of some of those numbers in our community. We can't really look at our hospitalization numbers, okay? Because we can tell you what the numbers are in the county, and we can make our own assessment as whether or not our community is being affected. But it would be hard for me to be hard pressed what numbers it would be that would change it. But if it changes for the worse, we certainly won't expire it. I can't imagine it's expired. Now, maybe other council might have an opinion on that, but let them decide how they'd like
So
to
on
handle it.
October 12th, are you saying on October 12th, if the numbers stay where they are or get lower, is there a certain number, a lower number that everyone is happy with that we could reverse the mask mandate? I understand if things get worse, you obviously would not reverse it, but what's the number, or what numbers are you calculating to not continue the mandate after October 12th, if that's the date that y'all pick? Does that make sense?
If we have an average that's significantly less than 16 a day, I would think that would be appropriate, okay? I would think that we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. That would be my opinion.
That's your opinion? Are you the one that gets to pick?
No, I want only one voice up here, only one vote.
Okay. I guess then the other thing, I don't remember who was showing the charts. The charts that they showed a little bit earlier, it looked like a lot of them, the numbers were going down. So maybe you could revisit that or explain to me a little bit how the charts that were showing that they were going down. And then there was one chart that it looked like it kind of was going flat and then barely bumped up. What are those numbers that you're looking at? Is he the one that's kind of picking the numbers too? I'm sorry, I didn't get on to see who it was.
Those are the numbers that we've been looking at since the 1st of July, or since the 1st of June, rather.
Okay, so the numbers that were going down on the charts they are superseded by the one chart that had the flat line with I think it was like 10 or 12 cases. Is that right?
All of those charts are basically stable, the same. They haven't increased dramatically and they haven't decreased dramatically. They're pretty much on a straight line.
No, go back and look at the charts that he was showing. There was a bunch
I don't have an option. I have them in front of me, okay?
Oh, okay.
And I've had them trend analyzed, okay, by statisticians. And they are basically the same. There's a slight trend, yes, downward, but it's a week's data doesn't make 2 weeks data doesn't make a trend, okay? Right.
So are we going to look at is that how it's going to be like on October 12th? We're going to go October before that.
Thank you very much.
Like 4 weeks. Thanks, guys.
Has our time expired, Casey?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Ms. Janice.
Okay. Next up. Well, here we go. Okay, if you would please share your first and last name once you get unmuted here. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm John Williams. I live in Swan Lake Addition, and I'm in Ward 4. And I understand exactly what this meeting's about, so I will be brief. Okay, first off, we were asked to flatten the curve. Okay, we did that. We did that. Okay. You asked the businesses to cooperate and to give you a plan, so to speak, of how they want to operate their stuff. Well, they've done that. And I think it's worked rather well. And then you let the public decide for themselves. And from what I've seen, as far as a voluntary thing, from what I've seen, just driving around and going out doing my business every day, so I see 60, 70% of the people are already wearing masks out in public anyway. So to me, I don't see any need to extend it. Of course, I didn't see any need to, go with anything anyway.
That's not the issue. That's not the issue, Mr.
I know, I understand that, but I don't see why we need to extend it any further out. If everything, if we've done what we're supposed to, the numbers have been, the numbers have stayed steady. Let the system work. Let the system you guys voted on work. Let it work. If it doesn't work, great. I'll go with whatever you decide. But the way it is right now, we don't need the extension, guys. Please, just humor me on that. We don't need the extension.
Thank you.
And that's going to play havoc with schools and stuff. But I appreciate y'all listening to me.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up, and again, we're only taking public comment specifically about extending the date at the mayor's request. Just a reminder for everyone. Go ahead and you need to unmute and then introduce yourself. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Liz Miller. I live at 2205 Cedar Point Court in Ward 4. A few of my questions were kind of covered with the first speaker, but I'd like to delve a little deeper into that because I feel like there's such a misconception as to what number you guys are hoping to achieve and how you're going to gauge effectiveness. So Mayor O'Neill, you mentioned maybe if we get to under 16 positive cases a day, that at that point, maybe we would have accomplished what you seek to accomplish with the mask mandate. My question to that is, if our hospitalizations go down, but we are still seeing positive cases, then would you reconsider that? If our morbidity numbers go down, would you consider reassessing that? It just seems like if cases go up, it's going to be attributed to needing more time for the mask mandate. If cases go down, it's going to be to the mask mandate working, and we need to extend it. Is the real underlying factor here that we're going to extend this mandate until there's a vaccine available? I think that's a lot of what people are wondering. And then how low does the death rate need to be before the emergency powers are taken away and we can't do these COVID restrictions and mandates any longer?
Well, I can't answer that. And that will be a decision made by each councilman individually when that time happens, okay? I'm hopeful that deaths aren't our criteria because our criteria we've only had, to my knowledge, with the exception of one zip code, 3 deaths in our community. And that's a phenomenal number that I would have so grateful for when we started this out, because we thought we'd be in much worse shape. But any other councilman would like to give his opinion on whether he would extend it or not extend it based on rules, based on the numbers, feel free to do so. But I think it's simply going to be, we'll look at the numbers when we see it and we'll make our best judgment at that time. I don't think you can ask us to do anything else. But we think that we will have some trend lines that are positive, but you never know, okay? There's a certain trend line that happened as a result of the Father's Day, 4th of July weekend that caused a bump up in our numbers. And we can sort of track it to some of those dates and times. When we went from an average of 7 or 8 cases to 16 cases, 15, 16 cases. So there are events out there that we can sort of track to and give our best judgment. And we think that's what happened. People got a little careless as a result of the holidays with their personal, more time together as a family. And
those holidays not centered with more of outdoor activities, though? I feel like the 4th of July and Father's Day are very outdoor centered, and we don't even have restrictions for outdoors, which I'm not for restrictions at all. Well, I'm curious how
family gatherings has been highlighted as a prominent area for increases recently, okay, by the county health department through their tracing methods. So that's celebrating those holidays together as a family in larger groups cause some of that. We have been told, okay.
How can Edmonds, oh yes, please, sorry.
I think also we're getting ready to see the schools start in Edmond, and we're trying really hard, I think, as a school system to get their schools back in session. So we're going to have that dynamic, and then we're going to have 15,000 or so UCO students back on the 20th. So I think those are a couple of dynamics that are going to be really important that we see, and it's just hard to predict what's going to happen when those people get here and we start those events.
Is there any way that Edmond citizens can have access to these specific Edmond numbers that aren't published by the State Department? Could you guys
We've,
post that on your Facebook page or something so that we can stay up to date? I know I'm diligent at looking at the COVID numbers, but if they're not Edmond specific because of our boundary lines with Oklahoma City, I think that would help with Edmond citizens understanding what's truly going on.
We discussed having this as a public announcement, a press release on it, and we'll discuss that with staff again.
Okay, that's
Good
time.
question.
Okay, next up. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leslie Mahan at 16304 Seminole Point Place. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have been following y'all for these many weeks that we started all of this, and I feel just as what the other people were saying, that we have flattened the curve. We've been doing everything that they have been asking us to do, and I don't feel that we should be extending this ordinance out any further than we've got. Just leave it the way it is, please. I mean, the school system itself is up in arms. 2 days on and the rest of the time off, you're not going to be able to measure that effectively. You know, it's so up in the air right now. And so I'm just asking y'all to please take that into consideration as you do your vote tonight, to not extend it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
let's get you unmuted here. You need to unmute.
Ms. Mugg, you need to unmute.
I think she's looking. There you go.
There she
Okay,
goes.
go ahead.
Trying. My name's Kristen Mugg. I spoke a few weeks ago. I am in support of extending to, I think it was October 12th, the mask mandate. I think 12 days is not an appropriate time frame to determine whether or not it's effective in reducing. The other thing I really want to emphasize is there's some folks who are really trying to pin you down to deaths, hospitalization, positive cases. I think it's a combination of all those things. As a business owner, if I have someone test positive who works in my office, half of our office is quarantined for 2 weeks. We've been smart enough, I think, to have team A, a team B. We have the plexiglass, we have the signs on the door. You know, deaths and hospitalizations are horrible. But if we're worried about schools staying open, we're worried about businesses staying open, being profitable, positive cases are incredibly important. That would be incredibly damaging to my business and to many other businesses. And so I'm very, very supportive of extending it. 12 days of a mask mandate is not sufficient to determine whether it's going to make a difference or not. The current mandate doesn't seem to have made an appreciable difference in the reduction of our numbers in the Edmond community. The other thing I want to mention is we are so intertwined with Oklahoma City and the other communities. There are people who live in, I have an employee who works in Edmond and lives in Midwest City and is on Tinker Air Force Base. And I think Councilman Moore's point was really well taken in that it's really hard to separate these different cities from each other because there is such an intertwinedness from residents, business, shopping, and so forth. So I really strongly support extending the mask mandate from 12 days to at least 6 weeks to see if it's effective in reducing those numbers, and just really want to strongly emphasize that positive cases, even if it's a minor case that someone gets over quickly, and many people have long-going issues, is super damaging to schools and businesses. So focusing only on whether people are dying, God forbid, or hospitalized is not the full picture. And so I really want to urge you and support you to extend that date to a date where at least we can see if those trend numbers are showing that this ordinance is making a difference. It doesn't seem that the current ordinance is making a difference. Quite frankly, I think many businesses who aren't members of the chamber or plugged in or just trying to survive, I've seen so many businesses that don't have the signage on the door. And I don't think it's because they don't want to comply. They don't know. But I think once we have a mask mandate, I mean, that's on the news, it's all over the place. So please extend it. That's what we're talking about. Please, please, 12 days is not a sufficient time to see if a mask mandate is effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Okay. Again, please state your first and last name. Keep all comments specific to moving the date or not. Let me get Jen muted here.
Carmen,
Okay, go ahead.
Tompkins, okay.
Okay, my name is Anthony Tompkins. I live at 3422 Wagon Wheel Road here in Edmond. And I'd sure like to first say that we do need to extend this mask ordinance. We need to make it have a little more teeth. Honestly, COVID-19 doesn't care about whether or not our businesses are flourishing. It doesn't care about our politics. And it certainly isn't going to magically go away. A lot of places around us have mask mandates. And the biggest problem we face is there is no coherence to all the communities in the metro. And obviously the short term that this mask mandate has been set is way too short. 2 weeks is the minimum to figure out if you even have it. So 6 weeks seems a lot more logical, maybe even 8. But until we get this thing under control, we are all we're all in the danger. And I don't mean that we're all going to die or that we're all going to get dramatically sick. What I mean is the longer this stuff sticks around and the longer we're still fighting it, the harder it is going to be for all of the local businesses to do what they need to do. And I think that that's the bottom line, that until we get this pandemic under control, our economy is going to suffer. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Or Casey.
We currently have 5 hands raised. I need, okay, that one has gone down, so we're gonna go to the next one. You can get unmuted there.
Great.
Okay, go
First
ahead.
time on. Good evening. This is Richard Ward. I live at 1401 Boomer Trail. I'm sorry, I'm not that prepared for this meeting. I was planning on attending a school board meeting, but I just couldn't get on the agenda in time. I had just got off the call with the epidemiologist. There's been a new epidemiologist that's been hired by Oklahoma. One point he was making to me was that the data is good 14 days ago, for example, or even longer. So we're going to look at the trends. My sense is that we are definitely not in a flattened curve type situation. Also, it has been recently reported that there are 22,000 or more unmeasured samples, which could have a great effect on our infection rate when those samples are eventually processed. In terms of an extension date, I definitely would prefer something a little bit longer. I'm going to suggest maybe you could put into this a trigger point for getting rid of it, just like the schools. So, for example, the schools have 2 trigger points right now. They have what's called the 14.39 trigger point and a 25 trigger point. If they exceed 25 trigger points, they should be going into a virtual type of environment. And that should be considered, they should stay in that virtual living or that virtual environment until beneath 14.39. which is considered the yellow area. If you could find some kind of trigger like that for a mask mandate, that'd be really helpful, because just like President Trump's task force report, it considers 100 cases per 100,000 people per week to be that important state where it's red. You should be limiting gatherings to 10 or less, and you should be mandating masks. So if we follow what President Trump's task force wants to do, maybe we should look at our numbers. Our numbers right now are on the 32. I would actually guess they're probably close to 40 for the county based on the lag of data, unprocessed samples. Again, 22,000 is a lot of samples for a state of 4 million people. Our numbers look a lot higher. The percentage of infection is also higher in these samples. We're up to 10%. So again, all this is leading towards an extension of the date with masks at work. A chemical engineer by background, my first job was doing paper towels. Paper towels wick away with water. So if you're sneezing, those masks hold these droplets, which cause infection. And so
Stay on top. Stay on top.
All right. I was just making the point that this helps, and the longer we can keep this in place, and maybe have a trigger for situation, the better.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it.
Okay, next up, again, please make sure you introduce yourself first and last name.
Mr. Stansberry, you're unmuted. There you go.
Go ahead.
Hey guys, Paul Stansberry, 1925 Oxford Avenue, lifelong Edmond citizen. I have 3 points to make. One, thank you for having the courage to mandate this in the first place. 2, I am in favor of the extension. 3, this particular issue is so divisive that you're not going to make, everybody happy. And so take the information that you have that's available to you and make the smart decision based on, the advisors and expertise that you have available to you. So I'm not going to give you information. It seems like everybody's coming out of the woodwork with, stats and numbers, and it seems like everybody's a statistician now. Just think of your citizens, and we appreciate that. So
thank you, Paul.
Okay. Next up. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Katie. I just wanted to hop on real quick and say that I, at this point, am not in favor of extending it simply because, our council meetings are supposed to meet every second and fourth Monday. I know right now we're meeting every Monday, which I feel like I'm getting to know you guys like friends now. But on the fourth Monday of this month is August 24th, which is about a week or two before the September 8th. And I think if we're truly concerned at looking at the numbers, and it would make sense perhaps at that meeting to look at where our numbers at, how we're doing, and then decide if we want to vote to extend it. It really doesn't make sense to extend it now and then revisit it all the time. Go closer to the date. If it needs to be move it out, then move it out. I think last week when we talked about it, it was going to be a weekly thing that we meet about, and now we're hearing, we're meeting about it so we can vote to extend it. Whereas if it makes sense with the original passing of this, that if we're going to meet weekly to discuss it, not meet weekly to pass it out. Like, I think the October date was 70 some days out, which I'm glad, because the November date was like 119, which is kind of crazy. So I do appreciate the October change, but on this one, it just makes sense to wait till we're closer, revisiting the numbers. I would love it if y'all posted those publicly. That would be super helpful to see those. But that's what I'm asking for tonight.
Thank you.
Mayor, it may be of value for the citizens to understand that there is a bit of a time difference requires more votes, right? In other words, you has to have 30 days if it doesn't get as many votes, right? So does that make sense?
That's correct, David. if we're voting within 30 days of the expiration of the ordinance, then it requires 4 votes. So that's why we're specifically talking about it tonight, is because we're outside of the 30 days of September 8th. And to pass this would only require 3 votes.
Thank you. That was exactly what I wanted them to understand is that there is a bit of a difference in when we evaluate the time frame.
But we're also,
And of course, that's following. I'm sorry. I was just going to point out that's following our city charter.
correct. But we're also looking at just cleaning up the dates so that there won't be as much confusion with the citizens. That we've heard several people tonight, 2 weeks is not long enough to do any type of analysis. So let's go ahead and set that now, and so we know where we're going to go.
There's good reason for us to discuss it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Okay, we have 2 more hands up, so we'll go ahead and get those done here.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tracy Sadler at 5713 Country Club Terrace, and I have just a couple of things. I really believe that the mandate should not be extended, and I realize it seems that in Edmond, everybody's wearing their mask anyway, or for the most part they are. I am not for mask mandate at all. I don't think that the council really had a clear answer to as to what you're basing your information on and what are going to be the how many decreases are they going to have daily before, since starting the mandate, has Oklahoma City seen a decrease, or Norman? And it doesn't seem that there's a clear line on, what is it going to be to have the mandate, whether we take it away or whether we extend it. So I think that those lines should be cleared up, and the council should kind of have an idea of what chart they're going to follow. Today on the Oklahoma State Department of Health, the COVID-19, it did say that the number of cases per day are still trending down. And as the business owner in Edmond, I wanted to ask, what will you do? We're not employed by the city to enforce mandates. So what will happen if people come into businesses and they don't wear their mask, or et cetera? What's going to be used to enforce that in like my place of business or anyone else's?
We will have more discussion on that topic as we get closer to the deadline, but city staff is working on a good answer for you in that case. Larry, do you want to take a stab at that now?
Yeah, candidly, I thought I addressed that. I think what we're looking at is responding on a complaint basis only. That's exactly what we did when we looked at the essential, non-essential. Unless we get a complaint and somebody notifies us of a situation, then we're not going to be involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mayor and council, thank you for letting me do this. My name is Tim Reese. I live at 1401 Old North Place in Edmond. As the mayor is aware, privately, he is aware that my 2 sons both contracted COVID. The numbers you're seeing, I'm just going to confirm firsthand, are delayed, even though we knew they had COVID. One was 8 days for a test. One was 13 days for a test. So I have no idea what numbers that we're getting today actually reflect what's really going on today. I do want to thank council for bringing up the extension to a reasonable period of time. I think that we'll have more history between Oklahoma City, Norman, and the other cities to seeing if this actually does the mitigation that we're all hoping it to do. And I would encourage you to go ahead and extend this, and then we can assess where we're at the time. I know this is a novel virus. This is probably our first pandemic since none of us were born in 1918. So we're learning on the fly. You guys are going to be getting more information as you go. And I trust you all to make the decisions based on the information you have at hand at the time. Thank you for letting me address this.
Thanks, Tim.
Mr. Mayor, we have no other hands raised, so we will close public comment at this time.
Very well. Council, we need a motion to approve this with the amendment. Daryl, Josh, you want to make a proposal, make a motion?
So the amendment would be the change from, would be October 12th other than November 30th. Is that what you're talking about? Sure.
Right.
Yes, I would make a motion that we approve the change in the ordinance to a new sunset date of October 12th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Cinda, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Moore,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Massey,
No.
Chapman,
Yes.
Mayor O'Neill.
No. Very well, that passes 3-2. Is there any new business to bring before council? I guess there's really not. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Raise your hand if you're ready to adjourn, guys. It's unanimous. Thank you all very much. Thank you, public, for listening, and thanks, staff, for all the support tonight. Appreciate that. Thank you.